You guys, when I look at Illumination's recent films, like Sing, Secret Life of Pets, Minions, Rise of Gru, oh my god! It's pretty clear that the studio knows what they're doing. But the new Mario movie just didn't quite do it for me. In today's world, where every movie coming out is pulled apart to pieces or put up on a pedestal, join me as we figure out what this movie does right, what it gets wrong, and how all that lands it somewhere in the middle. So grab that wrench, slide through that pipe, and let's go. The first thing I'll say is this movie looks gorgeous. From the very first frame, where we see a kingdom made of ice that slowly gets haze distorted by falling lava globs, we're immediately brought into this fictional yet fully realized world. Before my showing, a trailer came on for Elemental, the new Pixar movie coming out in a few months, and while that looked great too, Mario isn't that far behind visually. In this day and age, as technology is improving exponentially, an animation studio almost has no excuse not to look photoreal. It's always cool to see what inventive visuals the new Marvel movie comes up with, but it's also equally as impressive when a movie can get a simple kitchen scene looking believable. So as my eyes took in all this majesty, I thought, what else could I possibly want? Isn't it enough that it looks pretty? That for a video game movie aimed at kids as the target demographic, who am I to want anything more? But I do. I do want more. I can't let this movie slide as being just a sugar-coated treat for children. Looking at this as an adult, I've got a few issues with it. Let's go back to when this movie was first announced. I remember thinking, wow, how have they not done this already? Sure, they tried a live-action version back in 1993, but it didn't stick. The lore of Mario runs so deep, with countless games across generations of consoles, there's so much material to pull from. How did it take until 2023 for it to reach its full potential? For Nintendo to finally be willing to try again? I guess it must have taken a studio like Illumination to come along, with their proven track record, for Nintendo to finally give its blessing. And from the very start of the movie, where we see both of these companies' logos, it hit me how the world we live in just keeps recycling things into different forms of media. We got games turning into shows, movies turning into games, movies turning into other movies, books turning into movies, turning into rides, turning into games, turning into shows? What kind of nightmare world are we living in? And it goes even deeper than we all thought. At the beginning of the movie, Mario is sitting on his bed literally playing an old school NES, and it broke my brain. What exactly were they trying to do with that? Does Mario himself exist as a game that he can then play? Is he the mascot of the Nintendo that exists in his world? So many questions. It's like when I saw the 2017 Jumanji, which was made by Sony, and the main character is playing his Sony PlayStation while checking his Sony phone, while not one, but two identical posters for a PlayStation game hang on his wall. Who does that? Who hangs two of the same poster in their room? These mega corporations really don't understand subtlety, do they? All they want to do is keep cross-promoting even when it makes no sense in the movie's world. But if I let go of the fact that we're stuck in an endless loop of a snake eating its own tail, I move on to another issue I have, the voice acting. Need I remind you, Chris Pratt is probably in a recording booth right now, doing lines for the upcoming Garfield movie, saying something stupid like, "I hate Mondays, but I love lasagna," while getting paid $1 million for it. When I heard he was cast as the voice of Mario, I really wondered how he would approach the role. I remember him saying it would be unlike anything you've ever heard. But after watching the movie, I can tell you, he just sounds like himself. But it was smart of the writers to include a scene with the original voice actor for Mario, Charles Martinet, who basically says his accent is perfect, kind of as a way for the original character to give his blessing and tell the audience to just accept it. It reminds me of the recent Uncharted movie, where Nolan North, the guy who voiced Nathan Drake in the games, basically passed the torch to Tom Holland. I guess the sentiment is there, and we should be so lucky scenes like this are included at all, but as someone who's always hyper aware of what's going on behind the scenes, I just couldn't ever let go of the fact that I was listening to Chris Pratt throughout the whole movie. I thought we were already over Pratt-urated, but no, it hasn't stopped. But now that we've talked about the look of it and the voice acting, let's discuss the actual characters. Now, you know me. I'm always looking for that sweet, sweet character arc, and I can tell you, they don't exist in this movie. First, let's look at Mario. We see in a flashback that even as a kid, Mario has always stood up to bad guys. A schoolyard bully, their ex-employer Spike, then Donkey Kong, a gigantic bomber Bill, and finally, Bowser. He's been brave from the beginning. And towards the end of the movie, when Bowser is beating everyone up, Mario is sitting in a pizzeria all bruised up and defeated. But then he musters the courage to go back out, and it's supposed to be this heroic thing. But I was sitting in the theater thinking, wait, but he's always been heroic. So what was his arc exactly? Which brings me to Peach. Yes, she was always depicted as a damsel in distress, but to have her go so far in the opposite direction where she's near invincible isn't all that compelling. The way she flies through and obliterates this obstacle course is visually cool and all, but it actually makes her character seem even more one-dimensional. She didn't have to be so effortlessly perfect all the time. There's a reason Ghibli movies are so endearing, because the female main characters are shown to have faults, that they can fall into mud, or hit their head, or fly down some stairs and smash into a concrete wall. It brings them more down to earth. This wouldn't be so noticeable if they didn't make Mario such a bumbling dumbass in comparison. If I had a nickel for every time Mario got slapped, or had his face sucked by a fish, or being knocked around like a beach ball, but I guess all these moments where he gets beat up all come together to make the end battle even more satisfying. When he and Luigi grab the star and become invincible, it was pretty fun to watch. But again, we already knew he was a fighter with a heart of gold. So where was the arc? What was the development? Am I asking too many questions for a Mario movie? But with all that out of the way, let's get to my last gripe with the movie, the pacing. Pacing is something every movie has to struggle with to get right. The tiniest cut in the wrong place can make all the difference in the flow of a story. It all starts after Mario arrives in the Mushroom Kingdom that things started moving way too quickly. He arrives and Toad says he has to bring him to the princess. Were you gonna go anyway? Why were you waiting in the ground? You were just gonna stay there all day if Mario hadn't shown up? And once we get to the Princess Peach war room scene and see her for the very first time, she takes off immediately to ask the Kongs for help. You gathered all these toads together just to peace out? This could have been an email. Then Mario stumbles right into her path and the two of them immediately become friends. And then you guys go to an obstacle course right away? And then later, there's a forced conflict with Donkey Kong just to introduce us to the character, and an even flimsier reason to get somewhere fast so they bust out the Mario Karts. Don't get me wrong, it was super fun and nostalgic to hear the Mario Kart music as our heroes are putting their vehicles together, but at that point, it began to feel like these fan service moments and action set pieces were connected ever so thinly by webs of a shadow of an echo of a plot. I felt the same thing later in the movie, when Mario and Donkey Kong are busting their way through all the Koopas and Goombas. It looked great and the action was coming fast, but it was all just a bit too fast. Things kept happening one after another. Nothing was given any room to breathe. We as an audience need those crowd-pleasing applause breaks to really savor what's going on. Well, maybe not that long. Again, pacing is super important to the flow of stories, and it's obvious. The Mario movie doesn't give a flip about that. So at the end of this review, if there's anything good I can say about it, it looks beautiful, and it does move quickly enough that you're not bored. Things keep flying across the screen at a constant pace that you're distracted enough to not question things, but there's also an adverse effect where nothing you're watching means anything. Everything's fun and all, but after a while it was like having cotton candy and ice cream thrown at your face for an hour and a half. It was all simultaneously too much, and yet not enough. It feels like wasted potential, that something that looks and feels so fun and refreshing passes by so quickly and meaninglessly. But it did become the highest grossing video game movie after just 1 week of release, so I guess I'll shut up now. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.